Well, joining me now, CNN political commentator and former Trump campaign advisor, David Urban, CNN political analyst and White House correspondent for PBS NewsHour, Laura Barron-Lopez, CNN political commentator and former Democratic state representative from South Carolina, Bakari Sellers, and politics reporter for Semaphore, Shelby Talcott. Good to have you all here on this eve of another inauguration. I'll begin with you, David, on this point. Trump was promising, this is his quote, by tomorrow evening, the invasion of our border will have to come to a halt, and then raids could be obviously underway as early as Tuesday. Any concerns about overpromising and underdelivering on that timeline?
No, I think, look, Laura, I think you'll even see raids tomorrow. I think you'll see raids very, very soon. Tom Homan's been out and about talking to people. I think the border will be sealed tomorrow. There will be literally a new sheriff in town in terms of enforcement of the border. And so I think that'll become effective immediately. What I think is going to take a long time is obviously the mass deportations they're talking about, right? There's a million plus, 1.5 million or so adjudicated folks who have been adjudicated and ready to be sent home. Another 300,000 or so criminal aliens who've been convicted of murder or rape that have yet to be kind of rounded up. So if they were to just do that, imagine 2 million people. The Obama administration did this. They did about 6 million, but over 8 years. It took them 8 years to do it. So 2 million people it's no mean feat to identify, locate, detain, and expel them from our country. But you'll see that beginning to occur tomorrow, 12:01.
Well, we'll see, too, that I don't hear about a lot of coordination with different localities that would obviously facilitate all you're talking about. That's just one thing he mentioned, though, Bakari. He's talking about energy policy, DEI policies as well. He mentions getting rid of or eliminating job protections for federal workers. If you're a Democrat looking at this and you're in office thinking about it, is there a red line for you? Obviously, strategically, you don't want to maybe attack everything on minute one. Yeah. But what is the priority that they should do?
I mean, I think right now you don't want to have a hair on fire moment for everything Donald Trump does. I mean, you'll find yourself out there just, chasing every little executive order or thing that he does or the way that he enunciates this or who he castigates with that. So you want to stay away from that. My fear is that, and I said this earlier this morning, it bears repeating, by targeting the city of Chicago, for example, he has a foe which is by no means politically astute enough or has the deftness to maneuver around someone like Donald Trump. And I'm saying that in terms of the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson. And then you also have a faction of individuals. I know there was, I think yesterday or day before, a big march here in D.C. But, a march without a demand is just getting your steps in. And so I think Democrats have to refocus a little bit. And I don't think that there is any reason to have this kind of huge outrage tomorrow. I mean, the leader of the party now is Hakeem Jeffries. We're gearing up for elections in New Jersey and Virginia. Those are going to be crucial in November. Building a communications base, electing a good leader. Those are things. Tomorrow is going to be another day. And for me personally, this is who America voted for. I think in 100 days, from 100 days to 18 months, I'm going to be looking at David Urban and being like, well, this is what you asked for.
Listen, we're going to be celebrating, Bakari. We're going to be celebrating a more prosperous, secure America.
I pray. I pray it is.
Listen, it is, as Bakari says, it's in Democrats' interest, right, to cooperate. President Trump did win the popular vote, won electoral college vote. And so if they're going to try to kick down everything he puts up, right, just say no for the sake of saying no, they're not going to win again in 18 months. If they do it strategically, If they do it strategically and pick their battles, then they stand a chance of taking the House back.
Laura, let me ask you, actually, Shelby and Laura, bring into this because I want to know. I mean, it sounds like there's a strategic, not resignation, but keeping one's powder dry because they're trying to figure out what's the best step forward. But in the meantime, there are people whose State Department, Washington Post is reporting that scores of career diplomats are resigning from State Department. Now, everything he wants to do globally, it will take the work of a lot of these people, and they're doing so at the direction of Trump aides.
They're resigning at the direction of Trump aides. Yeah, I think that, because Donald Trump wants his own people in these agencies.
But as career diplomats.
He still wants to get rid of career diplomats. He's made that very clear. Across his campaign, he has said that he wants his loyalists and their people who he feels will not combat his agenda. That's why tomorrow we're going to see him issue what is known as Schedule F, this executive order. It's going to have impact across all of the agencies, not just the State Department. Now, people who have long time been civil servants, yeah, they're concerned about it because they do feel as though that this could have a negative impact on government in terms of the type of intelligence and just the experience that exists at these different agencies. And during Trump's first administration, when he tried to move some more of the federal government jobs outside of D.C., mind you, 80% of federal government jobs are outside of the DMV area. They actually are not inside of the DMV area. But when he did move some of them out, you did see resignations then as well, because the people that were used to working in and around the DMV were not prepared to move to a state like Kansas or to other states. But you could very likely see more of that this time around.
You know, it's interesting because people are looking at the Department of Justice, Shelby, and they're thinking about career prosecutors who might want to change their positions in some way. But the State Department might throw people for a little bit of a loop. But there's also this promise that Trump is making that people are going to be very, very happy tomorrow, he says, about January 6th. Some of the people who were rioting, teasing his supporters, they'll be very happy with the pardons. What do you know?
Yeah, this has been a really interesting shift for Donald Trump because remember, right after the riot, he came out and he denounced it, and then he really didn't like to talk about it for a long time. But there were people on the outside, supporters of the January 6th rioters, who slowly advocated for them over the past 2 years. And that is how Donald Trump shifted his position. And now we're seeing a lot of support for some of these January 6 rioters who have been convicted. And when I was out on the campaign trail over the last 2 years and I talked to Republicans, a lot of them were really serious about that. He's right when he says that people are going to be happy because I talked to his supporters. I mean, listen, are there Republicans who absolutely are not going to be happy about this? Yes. But the MAGA base as a whole likes this news.
I think it depends. I just would say this. I think it depends what it's going to look like, right? The pardons are going to look like, right? You know, you saw J.D. Vance on one of the shows saying, look, if you beat a police officer, right, you're not going to get pardoned. You're not going to get pardoned. But the people who were, you know, look, there was an east front story to the Capitol and a west front story to the Capitol, right? A lot of these folks, the bike rack was moved. The police officer stepped aside. They walked around, took some pictures in the Capitol, right? They were prosecuted, right? And he said, and JD said, you shouldn't be treated like a narco terrorist for that. People who beat police officers should not be pardoned.
How will he make that nuanced enough, Bakari, though?
I mean, it's just like that. I mean, right now, he can actually take a page from Joe Biden's book. Because right now, Joe Biden, in the past 2 weeks, they have been going through pardons and applications. I mean, overnight. I expect some pardons from the president of the United States in the morning. I mean, people act like he's not president anymore. He'll still be president until noon. I expect many more pardons in the morning from Joe Biden. But basically, you go down and you analyze. I mean, presidents have a wide swath of pardon power. Yep. And you can very well look at what somebody's been charged with, look at the underlying facts and put them in one category. And as soon as you see assault or assault on a federal officer or a peace officer or a police officer, then you can place those people aside. I think that, you know, if he wants to pardon the J6 rioters or hostages or village people or whatever we want to call them, people who were tourists or whatever they want to characterize them as, so be it. I mean, that's his prerogative. But if you pardon someone who actually put their hands on a police officer, 140 officers were hurt that day. We should all, as Americans, have a line in the sand. Whether or not he does it or not, I don't know.
That, of course, that was Pam Bondi's point.
There was about 600 rioters that were charged with assault of a police officer. So, there's a lot of them that were charged with that. So, what are the others that are left?
I think there's 1,600 charges, right? So 1,600 people were charged. That leaves 1,000. You could pardon presumably tomorrow.
But part of the math and part of the narrative has been that prosecutors overcharged or incorrectly charged. They have claimed, based on that, the wide swath of people. And so I could easily see there being some statements to that effect. I want to just go to look ahead for tomorrow, though, as well, and the theme. We know pardons are coming. We know this is going to be part of the conversation. But also the theme overall of the message. I mean, so we had earlier the tone of his 2017 inaugural address was of American carnage. But then Trump, the officials are saying that it'll actually be a more upbeat tone this time around. And here's what former Trump advisor Steve Bannon actually said about it.
I'm hearing he's not. I'm hearing this is a very different tone.
No. You bring the country together, unify the country.
What does Steve Bannon think of that?
I think it's very appropriate for this. Yeah. I think President Trump will go through how we got here, where we're going, what his plan is to lead us and to bring us together.
I think that what Bannon is saying is interesting because at its core, when you look at this election compared to 2017, the vibes are very different, right? There is a Democratic Party that doesn't have a clear leader right now. The resistance, so to speak, is sort of deflated. MAGA supporters, Trump supporters are no longer worried about being Trump supporters. And Donald Trump has also brought in this interesting coalition that in 2017, you would have never thought that Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. and Marco Rubio were all going to potentially be working together under the same administration. So, yeah, I think that all of those things put together, the vibes are a little bit more positive.
And he has a trifecta in Washington, D.C. right now as well. A lot to go on.